Would you like to, or rather would you enjoy receiving €1,000, pounds, dollars a month, regardless of what you do with your time, no matter what your educational or income level is? Well, something called Universal Basic Income, UBI, does make it possible, and in this video I'm going to give you 5 reasons why UBI is not only feasible, but also desirable for almost any economy.
How do you feel about universal basic income? Because that's a subject that comes up a lot.
The arguments in favor of universal basic income that I'm going to communicate to you are actually initially presented by Annie Lowrey in her amazing book, Give People Money.
Please welcome Annie Lowrey.
I believe that this book is actually nominated and is shortlisted for this year's Financial Times and McKinsey Best Business Book of the Year award. And I think that Annie Lowrey makes a great argument in favor of universal basic income, and she sets out many different examples in different countries and different ways where it actually worked. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you 5 takeaways that I found quite convincing for me thinking about universal basic income and its feasibility. Now, in very simple terms, universal basic income is a form of redistribution of money via a lump sum payment that is not means-based. So that right now we have means-based redistribution. So it's based on your kind of condition, based on the income band you're in, or based on the number of kids you have, based on a bunch of different factors. There are different schemes to redistribute or reallocate the funds that we have in the economy. So the UBI-based redistribution is not means-based. It goes to every single individual as a lump sum payment, and it's this kind of holistic approach to redistribution. So you just get cash or funds on your credit card regularly, every month or every week, and that does not depend on your profession, that does not depend on your income level, that does not depend on your background, your educational level, and things of that nature. Lump sum payment, certain sum in cash on a regular basis. That's universal basic income. Now, just a little point of confusion there. I think UBI, because of the universal part of basic income, sometimes it's viewed as something that is global, worldwide. What Annie Lowrey is talking about in her book is mostly US-focused UBI, so it's really a national basic income rather than the universal one. But of course, there are examples also to charities such as Give Directly, such as Give Directly, that is US based, but it does send funds directly to people in Kenya via smartphone transfer, digital transfer of money that they can then withdraw. But what we're talking about here is largely national basic income. The first argument, the first reason why we actually need UBI is the technological job displacement. And in the first chapter and the second chapter, Annie Lowrey gives this very clear case to the effect of our current technological advancements are moving at such pace that a lot of people are going to be displaced from their jobs by the technology that is coming in. And what actually she's arguing is that this time it is different from the agricultural revolution, it is different from the industrial revolution. And she gives examples of self-driving cars, of algorithms that can do all kinds of things. This is the argument that is used very often, and it gets a lot of skepticism. But I think there is a lot of strength in the point that now the machines are coming for our cognitive abilities. It is not just the manual labor that will be outsourced to the machine, it's our cognitive ability. A lot of the things that we consider humans to have exclusive expertise in will almost definitely cease to be our exclusive domain of knowledge or of expertise. And a good book almost exclusively on this topic is The Economic Singularity by Callum Chase. And Callum Chase was actually also on my podcast about artificial intelligence, and you can find it in the link below. Or the link somewhere around here. And this argument about technological job displacement is actually backed up by Barack Obama. And this is what President Barack Obama said in his farewell address. The next wave of economic dislocation won't come from overseas. It will come from the relentless pace of automation that makes a lot of good middle-class jobs obsolete. Here are some of the predictions about the power of artificial intelligence and other technologies to actually perform tasks that we consider as kind of human-only tasks. So, machine learning experts anticipated that the bots would beat the mortals at translating languages by 2024, writing high school essays by 2026, driving a truck by 2027, working in retail by 2031, writing a best-selling book by 2049. Researchers believe that there is a 50% chance of AI outperforming humans in all tasks in 45 years, and of automating almost all human jobs in 120 years. Now, it's always difficult to make those time predictions, that almost always they are largely consistent of guesswork, and we shouldn't give too much attention and too much importance to the numbers. However, the vector of development is undisputed. Machines are getting better at the jobs that we are used to be doing. A lot of experts actually tackle this argument about, the technological progress, this tech job displacement that is just going to wipe out all the jobs that people used to be doing. A lot of the experts are saying, wait, hang on. If you have this amazing pace of innovation, why is it actually not represented, or why is it not transcending into the total factor productivity growth? Right, so if we think about labor productivity, or TFP, total factor productivity, economies, people, processes are not getting more productive anymore. So the rate of TFP growth has slowed down in the rest kind of 10 years since mid-2000s. And Robert Solow has a very famous quote about this, saying something like, you can see computer age everywhere, but in the productivity statistics. Annie Lowrey actually explores this argument, and she argues that the economy was so transformed by the machines and by those tech advancements, by also digital advancements, that our ways of measuring productivity statistics do not actually capture that benefit or that transformation adequately. So she gives example to something like music industry measured in record sales, right? Record sales plummeted ridiculously in the last kind of decades, but it doesn't mean that people actually stopped consuming music. We just consume it through Spotify and through what's that Jay-Z thing, the Tidal, and other streaming services. And same goes with like movie sales and things of that nature. For example, with DVDs and cassettes, we just don't consume things that way anymore. And sometimes for the statistical tools, it's very difficult to capture that transformation of the economy. So maybe this is why we don't actually see that growth in productivity, but innovation is transforming the industries and making them more productive. So what is the problem with all of this? Okay, so there is technological job displacement. Let's say that it is driving the productivity. Let's say that machines do take our jobs. Wouldn't our economy just lift and there will be this abundance of wealth? So why do we need to somehow change the way we redistribute wealth? Wouldn't everything just grow? Well, the answer is probably not, because there is a split in terms of where people get their money from and how they actually do it, how they finance their lives. So, as I've said multiple times before on this channel, reviewing different things, there are people who own capital, means of production, right? If you are invested in the US stock market and the employers are slashing the jobs and replacing those humans that used to do those jobs with the machines, that is boosting their productivity, as a shareholder of those companies, or say of an S&P 500 index, you are definitely benefiting and things will be better for you. However, some people only own their labor, right? Some people don't have that wealth. They only have the flow based on the work that they are doing. So if you are a worker and your prime mean of financing your life is from wages, then your wages are almost certainly gonna either be wiped out because the services that you offer are no longer cheaper than what machine can do them for. And the next best alternative is a low-paid job that not only you are overqualified to do, but also doesn't finance you adequately. If you only own your labor as kind of the member of a working class, then you might be in big trouble with this technological displacement, because your wages are almost certainly going to stagnate. The second reason why we might want to implement universal basic income is actually even more simple than the first point that I was making. And this reason is the fact that we are, at least in America, and certainly to lesser extent in Europe, we are in a good job crisis. There is no job crisis, but there is a good job crisis. Any state in here that we no longer have a jobs crisis, in America that is, with the economy recovering to something like full employment a decade after the start of the Great Recession. But we do have a good job crisis, a more permanent, festering problem that started more than a generation ago. Work simply is not paying like it used to, leaving more and more families struggling to get by, relying on the government to lift them out of and away from poverty, feeling like the American dream is unachievable, even before the robots come to take all of our jobs. And this is where this massive debate about the stagnating wages of the middle class comes in. A lot of people are overqualified for the jobs that they're doing. The promise of a university degree securing a job for you is practically gone in most of the industries. And this is where the topic of inequality comes in. The 1% that owns the means of production are getting disproportionately richer, while a large chunk of population in America, which is supposed to be a country that's doing a lot of things right, at least economically, and now they're going through quite a good economy, objectively speaking. The wages for the middle class have been stagnating for 20-30 years. So the median income of a household did not change in 30 years, which is ridiculously negative statistic if you think of how well the economy as a whole is doing. Two things kind of aggravate this notion of crummy jobs, of people being overqualified for the jobs that they're doing, and just the unhealthy state of that middle straight of a job market. One of them is very large consolidation is taking place in the market. If it's pizza, it's Domino's. If it's transport, it's Uber. If it's fast food, it's McDonald's, Burger King, or KFC. If it's coffee, it's Starbucks, Caffè Nero, or Pret. There is consolidation of profits and output to 1, 2, 3, 4 firms in almost every industry. And what it does is that it decreases the likelihood of being poached by, say, another employer. In terms of the bargaining power of a worker, there is much less places to go to. There is just much less employers. So the only thing you have left is to actually stay in the company you're in and progress there. And of course, the numbers of, the managerial roles and the kind of upper level manager roles are not increasing that rapidly in those companies. Another factor is also those large companies have enough capitalization to actually swallow up the smaller players, amplifying that problem of consolidation in a marketplace. So what the workers have to do as a result, directly and indirectly, is to undertake contingent work arrangements, alternative work arrangements, such as freelancing and contracting. I've been a contractor before. It can be amazing in terms of flexibility in your life, but unfortunately, as a worker and as a sort of cog in the wheel, they can be thrown away at any time. You have very, very little bargaining power. And kind of the major problem with this is that contractors are actually not subject to minimum wage laws. So that, for example, that was some of the backlash from Uber drivers with the amount of money they were getting paid. Universal basic income will not just drive money and income to these people. It would act as a kind of 21st century union, returning power to workers, radically redefining them as an investment for business, not just as a cost. So what UBI will mean is that a worker will not have to take that low-paying job, because they will have some sort of a financial cushion every month, so that they can actually find the jobs that fulfills them and that is of more benefit to the economy because they actually like it. The worker would also get the bargaining power to get more benefits because, again, their life and well-being is not endangered and is not completely in the hands of the employer. So that does give a lot of power to the workers. And I think that in terms of job satisfaction, or rather aided by job satisfaction in the long term, it can really push the economy to grow. The third reason why UBI is acceptable, desirable, and completely doable is the fact that it's really not all about finding your purpose in work. Now, a very, very popular argument against UBI, especially in kind of English-speaking countries, particularly in the US and the UK. And this is kind of what I say quite often, is that the culture in the US and the UK is so focused on, you're gonna go get after it, you get out what you put in. Work is a big, big part of social life. And when people ask, the first question in any small talk, at any conference, anything really, would be, what do you do? What do you do for a living? Your job, your work, your profession, your position in the job market defines who you are and it is amplified in countries in very, very hyper-competitive capitalist economies such as the US and the UK. And Annie Lowrey here supports this point, saying that every civilization has its virtue. For the Greeks, it was courage. For the Romans, duty. For us, meaning Americans, it is industriousness. We see work not just as an economic necessity, but as a social obligation and the foundation of a good life, part of the American dream that anyone could start from nothing and end up prosperous and secure. Industriousness is a national religion. So, it is this whole notion of if you implement universal basic income, then you will undermine, degrade, modify this beautiful idea of an American dream and this almost religion of hard work and desert and getting what you actually deserve in life. If you just work hard enough, you're gonna get there. And there are a few problems with this. First, there are plenty of studies suggesting that it's just outright unhealthy, and we're not even sure where this is coming from, because there are completely healthy societies, much healthier than the American, the UK, and just much less toxic and less polarized sociocultural environments, let's say Scandinavia, where this notion of hard work, work like crazy all the time, it's not actually the case there. So this inherent need of work is not necessarily scientifically proven even. Now, purpose is important, and I think that the fact that Americans and the Brits tie their purpose with the work they're doing can be of detriment to them and their mental and physiological well-being. And I also fall in that category sometimes, and it's both kind of, a blessing and a curse. You judge yourself for not working enough, and, you have certain ambitions that you want to achieve, and you tie your personality and you tie the success of you as, as a unit in this society to your professional achievements. That is not always a good thing. And here Annie is challenging, or rather she quotes, she's quoting someone who says, we're not facing a future without work. We're facing a future without jobs. We've got it all backwards, thinking that work enables money. Work is not possible without money. As long as we have monetary system, money comes first. And so we need to make sure everyone starts every month with enough money to be enabled to perform intrinsically motivated work. We don't start monopoly with $0. Why do we start our economy with $0? Universal basic income then allows a shift towards an entirely new system. And I think that there is this beautiful argument about, the work that is intrinsically motivated, the work of art, the emotional labor, as Seth Godin calls it.
That idea that we can become passionate about our work, as opposed to expecting our work to give us passion, makes us way more flexible, gives us way more leverage, allows us to move forward. And it gets back to the narrative, the self-talk we have about this work we get to do, as opposed to having to treat it as something we have to do.
This is what actually can be making a massive difference in the world. And if we only don't start with $0 so that we have to take, the kind of the next best thing, the job that we can, quickly get and start working and start getting that paycheck. If we only have some sort of financial cushion to fall back on, maybe we will be pursuing the jobs that are intrinsically motivated and that come from the heart, that come from within, and they're always turning out to be actually of better value to the society. Now, I really like this argument, but I do not know if everybody is creative in that sense. I don't know if everyone can perform emotional labor that will actually get them some sort of dividend in the future. I don't know about that. There are arguments in scientific literature on both sides. But what I know is that even though work can be our purpose, and it's a great purpose to serve the society, I don't think that a lot of the jobs, especially the jobs that middle class is doing, even white collar jobs, certainly blue collar jobs and manual jobs, I don't think that this is the work that actually gives you purpose, and that I don't think that it's truly from within you feel like that is your purpose. It is an easy answer to adopt that, yes, this is my purpose, I'm doing this. But I'm not sure if for even the majority of people that is actually the case. So maybe UBI is something that we can give a shot to and just see whether it's going to transform the economy or not. The fourth argument in favor of universal basic income is the fact that it doesn't actually make people lazy. So you would hear people say, you know what, if we just hand out cash every month, people are just not going to do anything, sit on their bums and watch TV all day. Well, in reality, it's actually not the case. And a lot of the studies, and Annie in her book cites a lot of scientific literature on that, especially talking about the charity called Give Directly that does a lot of work in providing basic income to in some African countries. I think more particularly in Kenya. They provide some sort of basic form of subsistence, like $30 or something like that, not that much, a month to every single individual via cash transfer. And what it actually shows is that, contrary to expectations, people don't actually work less. People don't actually use that money to buy alcohol. In fact, the consumption of alcohol falls when you implement some sort of a basic income. But you know what increases? Savings. And you know what decreases? Malnutrition and violence. So the receipt of cash transfers, basic income transfers, doesn't have any impact, is not correlated in any way with the number of hours worked. So that criticism of UBI is completely unfounded. And another point that is often given is that, you know, maybe in terms of lifting people out of poverty, cash is not always the best solution. Maybe it's better to get food have food transfers, or maybe it's better to have you know, clothes and stuff like that, or medicine directly distributed, because, you know, say maybe economy is not developed enough to actually for people to actually make use of that cash, or the, you know, financial literacy and financial discipline is not good enough to actually allocate that cash appropriately. But actually talking to some of the people in extreme poverty, Annie citing a lot of the people who have done that, and it is undeniable that those people actually want cash. Cash transfers is an ideal way of redistribution for people who actually do live in extreme poverty. And it's because, you know, if maybe some people do have food but don't have medicine. Maybe people have enough medicine, or, you know, they're healthy, but they actually need food. So with cash, you can really buy anything. So this is why cash transfers and UBI is better than other forms of redistribution, or, you know, giving some certain type of goods or service to people instead of the hard cash. The fifth and final reason why universal basic income can be the best solution to poverty, inequality, and can produce tremendous benefits in terms of improving our socio-cultural and economic well-being, is the fact that current means-based redistribution, especially in America, is inherently racist, unfortunately. Annie compares Europe and the US as two very, very similar economic regimes. Capitalistic, technologically advanced, the type of labor and the number of industries is very varied, very competitive, very high talent coming into those markets, the American and the European. But in terms of the redistribution and social transfers, Europe is miles ahead of America. And 3 economists in 2001 were asked, why is that the case? And they looked at a few economic explanations: the shape of income distribution before taxes and transfers, the volatility of earnings for individual workers, and the expected growth of earnings among them. But they actually were not convinced at all of these factors that I've just listed. Their blunt conclusion was this: within the United States, race is the single most important predictor of support for welfare. America's troubled racial relations are clearly a major reason for the absence of American welfare state, and thus its smaller government. So the real problem is in this racial segregation of basic income transfers, or rather distribution of financial resources in the economy. So, the data shows, and the statistics that Annie presents is actually very clear on this, and it's deeply, deeply troubling. So the black households get means-based social benefits programs that have very high stigma of, you know, degrading and undermining their, you know, their pride, and making them seem like they're feeding off the taxpayers' money. That just starts this plummet down in terms of even the motivation to, you know, to pull yourself out of poverty and to do some meaningful intrinsic work, what we like to say. But the white households that are in poverty, so there is nothing that is different from blacks and from black and white households here, apart from the actual race of the members of that household. So while blacks are getting social benefits and food stamps that are deeply degrading to their position in the society, the whites are getting these automatic, almost invisible subsidies, you know, subsidies on mortgages, tax breaks, and things of that nature that are not that degrading socially, and that are not that shameful from the kind of perspective of the society as a whole. So universal basic income will completely wipe out those racial differences. And if you have a certain sum of money in cash that you give to white households and to black households, to Hispanic households, you know, it would just not matter. The race here is completely out of the picture, and so are other different biases such as gender and things of that nature. So I think that in terms of the equality of opportunity, UBI cash transfers are preferred to those means-based transfers that are, at least in the US, deeply racist. Thanks a lot for watching this. So these were the 5 reasons for the implementation of universal basic income. Definitely check out the book Give People Money if you like, or any of the points that I made appeal to you, find them interesting, or you're interested in the way economy works in general. And also, I didn't talk about the way to actually make it happen, because Annie's discussion is very focused on the US, but if you want to actually see if the US can afford paying UBI something like $1,000 a month, Annie here in the last chapter lays out how it's actually possible and how the US government can do it. So thanks again, wish you peace, prosperity, enjoy in the coming week, stay safe, and cut back on processed beef. Bye!